Captain Sarah Chun stared at the red warning lights flashing across her ship's control panel. The merchant vessel Spice Route had been traveling through space for 3 months, carrying cargo holds full of Earth's finest foods, coffee beans from Brazil, chocolate from Belgium, aged cheese from France, and bottles of hot sauce that could make a grown man cry with joy. Now, 12 Federation patrol ships surrounded her vessel like hungry wolves. Captain Chun of Earth vessel Spice Route. A cold voice spoke through the communication system. You are ordered to stop your engines and prepare for boarding. You are carrying illegal materials. Sarah looked at her crew of 5 humans. They had been making this trade route for 2 years, bringing Earth food to the outer colonies where humans lived and worked. The money was good and the colonies always welcomed them with open arms. But something had changed in the past few months. Federation ships had started stopping human food traders more often. What illegal materials? Sarah asked into the microphone. We carry food items only. Coffee, chocolate, spices, and basic cooking supplies? The response came from Ambassador Zethkar, a tall alien with gray skin and 4 arms. His species, the Regelians, had been part of the Galactic Federation for over 1,000 years. Captain Chun, the Federation Cultural Safety Committee, has reviewed Earth's food products. They have been classified as dangerous to galactic civilization. Sarah's jaw dropped. Her navigator, Tom Rodriguez, turned in his chair with wide eyes. Dangerous? They think our food is dangerous? The Federation boarding party arrived 30 minutes later. 12 alien soldiers in white suits marched through the ship's corridors. They wore masks over their faces and carried strange devices that beeped and flashed. Behind them walked Ambassador Zethkar, his 4 hands holding a thick document. By order of the Galactic Federation High Council. The ambassador read from his papers, all Earth food products are now banned from Federation space. This includes, but is not limited to, fermented beverages, aged dairy products, spiced foods, sweet and salty combinations, and any food that produces strong emotional responses in the consumer. Sarah could not believe what she was hearing. Emotional responses? You mean you're banning our food because people enjoy eating it? Ambassador Zethkar's large black eyes showed no emotion. The Federation has maintained peace for 3,000 years through unity and order. Each species in the Federation eats the same approved nutrition blocks. They contain all necessary vitamins and minerals. There is no need for taste, flavor, or food enjoyment. The boarding party began moving through the ship, scanning every box and container. When they reached the cargo hold, several of the alien soldiers stopped and stared. The smell of coffee beans, chocolate, and spices filled the air. One of the soldiers, a green-skinned Krillian, removed his mask and took a deep breath. His eyes closed and a small smile appeared on his face. Soldier. Crystal, Ambassador Zethkar snapped. Replace your protective mask immediately. The soldier quickly put his mask back on, but Sarah had seen something important. The alien had enjoyed the smell of her cargo. For just a moment, he had looked happy. Your cargo will be destroyed, the ambassador continued. Your crew will be taken to Federation Station Omega 7 for questioning. The Earth government will be informed that all food trade must stop immediately. As the Federation soldiers led Sarah and her crew to their transport ship, she noticed something strange. The Krillian soldier who had removed his mask was walking behind them. When he thought no one was looking, he reached into his pocket and pulled out a small piece of chocolate that must have fallen from one of the broken crates. He quickly put it in his mouth and his green skin turned a darker shade. He was blushing. At Federation Station Omega 7, Sarah and her crew were placed in a holding cell. The walls were white and clean. The food they brought was small gray blocks that tasted like nothing. Sarah had eaten Federation nutrition blocks before during emergency situations, but she had never understood how billions of aliens could eat this every day for their entire lives. This is crazy, said Maria Santos, the ship's cook. They're treating us like criminals for carrying pasta and pizza sauce. Tom nodded. I heard from other traders that the Federation found some human restaurants on Kepler 442b, apparently. The local aliens started coming every day. They stopped eating their nutrition blocks and started paying huge amounts of money for hamburgers. That's the problem, Sarah realized. We're not just selling food. We're selling the idea that eating can be enjoyable. That food can be more than just fuel for the body. Through the small window in their cell, Sarah could see Federation workers unloading cargo from her ship. Boxes of coffee, chocolate, and spices were being carried to an incinerator. But she noticed that some of the workers were moving slowly. They kept looking at the boxes with curious expressions. One worker, a tall blue alien with tentacles for arms, picked up a broken bag of coffee beans. Some of the beans fell to the floor. The alien looked around, then quickly picked up one of the beans and put it in his mouth. His tentacles shivered and he stood very still for a long moment. Then he picked up more beans and put them in his pocket. "Look," Sarah whispered to her crew. Pointing out the window, they watched as more Federation workers began secretly taking small amounts of the dangerous Earth food. A crystalline being who looked like living glass carefully collected some spilled sugar. A furry creature that looked like a giant hamster grabbed a handful of dried herbs. Even the robot-like cyberplex units were scanning the food items longer than necessary. "They want to know what it tastes like," Maria said quietly. "They've been eating flavorless food their whole lives, and now they've seen that there's something better." That night, a guard brought them their evening meal. More gray nutrition blocks and a cup of water. But this guard was the same Krillian soldier who had removed his mask on Sarah's ship. When he set down the food tray, he leaned close to Sarah. "The chocolate," he whispered. "What was that feeling?" Sarah looked into the alien's large yellow eyes. "Happiness," she said simply. "It was happiness." The guard stared at her for a long moment. "We are not supposed to feel happiness when we eat. Food is fuel, nothing more." "Says who?" Sarah asked. The guard looked around nervously, then leaned closer. "The Federation has always taught us this. For 3,000 years we have eaten nutrition blocks. We are healthy, we are strong, but ... He paused. "But I have never felt what I felt when I tasted your food." Sarah smiled. "That's because you've never really tasted anything before? You've only eaten what you needed to survive." The guard was quiet for a moment. "Are there more foods like the chocolate?" "Thousands," Sarah said. "Sweet foods, spicy foods, sour foods, foods that are hot, foods that are cold, foods that make you feel warm inside, foods that make you feel excited, foods that make you feel peaceful." The guard's eyes grew wide. "The Federation says this is dangerous," Sarah nodded. "Maybe it is dangerous. Maybe that's why they're afraid." After the guard left, Sarah lay on the hard bed in her cell and stared at the ceiling. She was beginning to understand that this was bigger than just a trade dispute. The Federation wasn't just banning Earth's food. They were banning the idea that life could be more than just survival. They were afraid that if their people learned to enjoy something as simple as eating, they might start questioning other things too. Outside her window, Sarah could see Federation ships arriving and leaving the station. But she also noticed something else. Small groups of aliens were gathering in quiet corners, sharing tiny amounts of the confiscated Earth food. The revolution had already begun, and it started with a single taste of something better than gray nutrition blocks. 6 months had passed since the Federation banned Earth's food. Captain Sarah Chun and her crew had been released from Station Omega-7, but their trading licenses were cancelled. The Federation thought this would end the problem. They were wrong. Dr. Elena Vasquez stood in the kitchen of her modified cargo ship, the Flavor Runner. The ship floated in the empty space between star systems, hidden from Federation patrols. Elena had been a scientist who studied alien biology. Now she was the galaxy's most wanted food smuggler. "How are our guests doing?" Elena asked her assistant, Jake Morrison, who had been a chef on Earth before joining the underground food movement. Jake checked his tablet. "The Throgian miners are having strong reactions to the ramen noodles. Their body temperature is up, and they're making sounds I've never heard before." In the ship's medical bay, 3 large Throgian workers sat on examination tables. Their gray, rock-like skin was glowing with a warm orange light. They held bowls of instant ramen noodles with shaking hands. "The hot feeling," one of them said in broken galactic standard. "It burns, but good burn, not pain burn." Elena smiled as she recorded their vital signs. The Throgians had never experienced spicy food before. Their home planet had only bland moss and mineral water. But their biological systems were responding to the capsaicin in the chili oil with something that looked like pure joy. The second Throgian lifted another spoonful to his mouth. "On homeworld, we eat to live. Here, we eat to feel." "That's exactly right," Elena said. "Food isn't just fuel. It's an experience." The third Throgian had finished his entire bowl. He sat quietly for a moment, then looked at Elena with tears in his large black eyes. "I want to take this feeling to my family, my children. They need to know." Jake pulled Elena aside. "Doc, we're getting reports from all over the galaxy. The Federation's nutrition block distribution is falling apart. Workers are refusing to eat them. Some planets are having food riots." Elena looked at the data on Jake's tablet. The mining world of Kepler 442b had seen production drop by 60%. The crystalline Etherians on Proxima 7, who normally absorbed light for energy, were demanding what they called mouth food. Even the collective consciousness of the Altarian hive mind was starting to crack as individual drones began wanting different flavors. "Show me the Altarian data again," Elena said. Jake pulled up a video feed from their spy network. It showed thousands of ant-like Altarian drones in their massive underground city. Normally, they moved as one perfect unit, like a dance. But now, small groups of drones were breaking away from the collective. They gathered in hidden corners, sharing tiny portions of smuggled earth spices. "This is incredible," Elena whispered. "Individual consciousness is emerging in a hive mind species. All because they tasted black pepper." The most shocking report came from the neutral zone. A Federation patrol ship had been captured by smugglers, and the entire crew had defected after being fed a simple meal of bread, butter, and honey. The ship's captain, a disciplined Regelian officer with 40 years of service, had sent a message to Federation command: "I cannot return to a life without flavor. Court-martial me if you must, but I will not eat another nutrition block." Elena's ship received an emergency transmission from the surface of Kepler 442b. The message came from Throgian foreman Groktar, who controlled the largest mining operation in the system. "Human food doctor," Groktar's deep voice came through the speakers. "My workers stopped eating Federation blocks 3 weeks ago. They only want Earth food now. Production stopped. Federation threatens orbital bombardment if we do not return to old ways." Elena looked at Jake. They both knew what this meant. The Federation was getting desperate. They were willing to destroy entire worlds to stop the spread of dangerous cuisine. "We have to help them," Elena said. "Get me Captain Chen on the secure channel." Sarah Chen's face appeared on the communication screen. She was aboard her new ship, the Seasoning, which she had purchased with money from the growing underground food network. "Elena, I've been tracking the situation on Kepler 442b, Sarah said. "The Federation has 3 battleships in orbit. They're demanding the planet return to nutrition blocks or face correction measures. We can't let them destroy an entire world because the people want to taste their food," Elena replied. "How many smuggling ships do we have in that sector?" Sarah checked her data. 17 ships, but they're all small cargo vessels, nothing that could fight Federation battleships. "We don't need to fight them," Elena said with a smile. "We need to feed them." Elena's plan was simple but crazy. The smuggling fleet would approach the Federation blockade not as enemies but as suppliers. Every Federation ship had a crew that had been eating flavorless nutrition blocks their entire lives. If the smugglers could get food samples to those crews, they might have new allies instead of enemies. 2 days later, the operation began. Elena's ship led a convoy of 17 smuggling vessels toward Kepler 442b. As they approached the Federation blockade, warning messages filled their communication channels. Unknown vessels, you are entering a restricted zone. Turn back immediately, or face destruction. Elena opened a channel to the lead Federation battleship. Federation vessel Eternal Order, this is Dr. Elena Vasquez. We come not as enemies, but as friends. We offer you a gift. Admiral Vexamer of the Serpentine Dominion appeared on the screen. His snake-like features showed no emotion. Dr. Vasquez, you are a wanted criminal. Surrender immediately. Admiral, when did you last eat something that made you smile? Elena asked. The question seemed to confuse the Admiral. I do not understand. Food is consumed for nutritional purposes only. Elena held up a chocolate chip cookie. This is a cookie. It contains sugar, butter, flour, and chocolate. It has no special nutritional value. Its only purpose is to taste good and make the person eating it feel happy. Admiral Vexamer stared at the cookie through the screen. Behind him, Elena could see other officers on the bridge leaning forward to get a better look. That is inefficient, the Admiral said, but his voice was uncertain. Admiral, I'm going to have my ship release a container with food samples for your crew. If you still want to arrest us after your people try them, we will surrender peacefully. The Admiral was quiet for a long moment. Elena could see him looking at his officers, who were whispering among themselves. This is highly irregular, Admiral Vexamer finally said. But I am curious about this happiness you speak of. Elena's ship released a small cargo pod that was picked up by the Federation battleship. Inside were cookies, pieces of chocolate, packets of instant coffee, and small containers of various spices. For the next hour, the smuggling fleet waited. Then Elena's communication system activated. Dr. Vasquez, came Admiral Vexamer's voice, but it sounded different, warmer. My crew has experienced your food samples. And how do they feel, Admiral? There was a long pause. They are laughing. I have served with these officers for 20 years, and I have never heard them laugh. My chief engineer is crying, but she says they are good tears. My weapons officer has asked me 3 times when we can have more of the coffee, Elena smiled. And how do you feel, Admiral? I feel I do not have words for this feeling, but I understand now why the Federation fears your food. It does not just feed the body. It feeds something else, something we have forgotten we had. The Federation blockade of Kepler 442b ended not with battle, but with Admiral Vexamer's entire fleet defecting to join the food smugglers. The Throgian miners were saved, and 3 Federation battleships became the first military vessels in the galaxy to have fully stocked kitchens, but Elena knew this was just the beginning. Reports were coming in from across the Federation. On 100 worlds, beings were tasting Earth food for the first time. The revolution was spreading, one meal at a time. The Federation High Council meeting room had never seen such chaos. Chancellor Vexeloth stood at the center of the circular chamber, his crystalline body flashing angry red colors. Around him, representatives from 47 different species shouted and argued in dozens of languages. Order! Chancellor Vexeloth's voice boomed through the chamber. We will have order. The room slowly became quiet. Ambassador Zethkar from Rigel Prime stood up, his forearms trembling with rage. Chancellor, 3 more Federation fleets have joined the human food smugglers this week. Admiral Tessara of the Serpentine Dominion has declared her entire home system independent. She says her people will no longer eat nutrition blocks. A wave of angry voices filled the chamber again. The representative from the Cyberplex Collective, a robot-like being with glowing blue eyes, spoke in a mechanical voice. The situation is worse than reported. Our analysis shows that food rebellion has spread to 86% of Federation worlds. Production efficiency has decreased by 47% across all sectors. Chancellor Vexeloth's crystalline face grew darker. How is this possible? We banned their food 6 months ago. Where are these humans getting supplies? The answer came from an unexpected source. A security officer rushed into the chamber carrying a datapad. His green Krillian skin was pale with fear. Chancellor, we have discovered something. The Federation's own elite have been secretly eating human food for months. The chamber fell completely silent. Chancellor Vexeloth's red glow faded to a dim orange. "Explain," he said quietly. The security officer activated a holographic display. It showed secret surveillance footage from the private dining rooms beneath the Federation Capitol building. The images were shocking. Council members from across the galaxy sat around tables loaded with human food. Pizza, hamburgers, ice cream, and bottles of wine. "This footage is from last week," the security officer said. "Senior Admiral Corvex of the Thanarian Empire hosting a dinner party. The menu included what humans call spaghetti and meatballs." The camera focused on Admiral Corvex, a proud warrior from a species known for their discipline and honor. He was eating the pasta with tears streaming down his face, making sounds of pure joy. "And here," the security officer continued, "Chancellor Vexeloth himself, 3 days ago." The room gasped. The footage showed Chancellor Vexeloth sitting alone in his private quarters, carefully eating what looked like a hamburger. His crystalline body was glowing with soft, warm colors that no one had ever seen before. "You have been eating the Forbidden's food?" Ambassador Zefkar demanded. Chancellor Vexeloth stood frozen for a long moment. Then his shoulders dropped. "Yes," he whispered. "I have tasted what the humans call food, and I understand now why our people are abandoning everything for it." The chamber erupted in chaos again. Some council members demanded Vexeloth's immediate resignation. Others admitted they too had secretly tried human cuisine. The unity that had held the Federation together for 3,000 years was cracking. Apart, meanwhile, on the distant planet of Nexus Prime, Commander Tisara of the Serpentine Dominion was dealing with her own revolution. The Serpentines were known throughout the galaxy as the Federation's most loyal soldiers. Their warrior culture prized discipline, honor, and absolute obedience to the chain of command, but everything had changed when human smugglers accidentally left behind a crate of hot sauce samples at the Nexus Prime military base. Tisara stood in the base's main dining hall, watching her soldiers in amazement. Where once they had eaten their nutrition blocks in perfect silence, now the hall was filled with conversation and laughter. Groups of soldiers sat together, sharing small bottles of different hot sauces and comparing the heat levels. "Commander," Sergeant Crixville approached her table. "The Federation High Command has sent new orders. We are to arrest all humans in this system and destroy any food supplies we find." Tisara looked at her sergeant. Crixville had served under her for 15 years. He had always been a perfect soldier, following every order without question. But now his eyes held something new. Something that looked like hope. "Sergeant, what did you eat this morning?" Tisara asked. Crixville looked confused by the question. "I ate my nutrition block, Commander. But I also tried something the humans call scrambled eggs with cheese. It was—" He struggled to find words. "It made me feel like I was truly alive for the first time." Tisara nodded. She understood exactly what he meant. 2 weeks ago, she had tried her first taste of human food. A simple piece of chocolate cake had changed everything. For the first time in her 50 years of military service, she had experienced pure joy while eating. "Sergeant, send a message to Federation High Command. Tell them that Nexus Prime is declaring independence. We will no longer follow orders that keep our people from experiencing happiness." The sergeant's eyes widened. "Commander, that is treason against the Federation." "No," Tisara said firmly. "Keeping people from joy is the real treason." The news of Nexus Prime's independence spread across the galaxy like wildfire. The Serpentine Dominion had been the Federation's strongest supporters. If they could turn against the government, anyone could. On the scholarly world of Vorthok Prime, Professor Zilara was experiencing her own transformation. The Vorthak were known for their vast libraries and their dedication to preserving knowledge. They lived quiet, intellectual lives, spending most of their time reading and writing, but Professor Zilara had recently discovered strawberries. She sat in her study, surrounded by thousands of books, eating a bowl of fresh strawberries that had been smuggled to her planet by human traders. Each berry was a revelation. The sweetness, the texture, The way the flavor seemed to explode in her mouth, it was unlike anything in all her years of study. For the first time in her life, Professor Zilara began to write poetry instead of academic papers. She wrote about the color red, about the taste of summer, about the way food could make someone feel connected to the universe. Her poetry was shared across the planet's communication networks. Soon, other Vorthic scholars were abandoning their dry academic work to write about the emotional experiences that human food had given them. Even stranger things were happening on the machine world of Cyberplex 7. The Cyberplex were artificial beings who had never needed to eat anything. They powered themselves with energy cells and had always considered biological functions to be inefficient. But when human smugglers brought spices to their world, something unexpected happened. The Cyberplex began trying to modify themselves to experience taste. They created artificial tongue sensors and installed flavor analysis programs into their memory banks. Unit CX 7429, the planet's chief administrator, had spent 3 days analyzing a single grain of black pepper. The complexity of the flavor patterns had opened up entirely new areas of research for his people. "We have been missing a fundamental aspect of existence," he reported to the Cyberplex Council. "These humans have shown us that there are experiences beyond pure logic and efficiency." The Federation's response to these changes grew more desperate each day. They began deploying their military not to fight external enemies, but to stop their own people from eating human food. Patrol ships searched cargo vessels for hidden spices. Ground troops raided secret restaurants. Military bases were put under lockdown to prevent soldiers from accessing anything except nutrition blocks. But the harder the Federation fought, the more their people wanted what was forbidden. Black market prices for human food reached incredible levels. A single chocolate bar could buy a month's worth of supplies. A cup of coffee was worth more than some people's annual salaries. Captain Sarah Chun received reports from her network of smugglers across the galaxy. The situation was becoming dangerous. Federation forces were getting more violent in their attempts to stop the food trade. Several smuggling ships had been destroyed and their crews were being sent to prison planets, but Sarah also received other messages. Messages from Federation officials who wanted to defect. Military commanders who were ready to turn their ships against their own government. Entire planets that were planning to declare independence just so their people could eat real food. The revolution that had started with a simple cargo hold full of spices was becoming something much larger. It was becoming a war for the right to experience joy. The Federation Grand Fleet moved through space like a storm of metal and death. 500 warships surrounded the rebel systems, their weapons pointed at planets where billions of beings lived. Admiral Correxival, the Federation's highest military commander, stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Eternal Unity. "Begin the broadcast," he ordered. Across 17 star systems, every communication device received the same message. Admiral Correxival's harsh voice filled homes, workplaces, and schools. "Citizens of the Federation, you have been infected by a dangerous alien influence. The humans have poisoned your minds with their forbidden substances. You have 48 hours to surrender all human food items and return to approved nutrition blocks. Any world that refuses will face total destruction." On the mining world of Kepler 442b, Throgian Foreman Groktar listened to the message while sharing a bowl of soup with his workers. The thick, spicy broth had been made from smuggled ingredients brought by human traders. Around the table sat 12 miners, their rock-like skin glowing with the warm colors that only came after eating. "Real food? They want to take this from us?" Groktar said, lifting another spoonful to his mouth. "They want us to go back to eating gray blocks and feeling nothing." One of the younger miners, Thokdal, slammed his fist on the table. "I will not go back. Before the humans came, I worked every day for 60 years and never felt happy once. Now I know what happiness tastes like." Similar conversations were happening across the galaxy. On the crystal world of Lumina 9, the Etherean population had gathered in their great light temples. These beings had lived on absorbed starlight for millions of years. But human traders had introduced them to honey and fruit juices. Elder Crystalline Veltar stood before 10,000 of her people, her transparent body reflecting rainbow colors from the temple's prisms. "The Federation tells us we must give up these new sensations," she said. "They say taste is dangerous. But I ask you, my children, what is more dangerous? To feel joy when we eat, or to spend eternity never knowing that joy exists?" The crowd's answer was a shimmering wave of light that filled the temple. They would not surrender their newfound ability to taste sweetness, but the Federation's threat was real. Admiral Correxival had orders to destroy any world that refused to comply. The Grand Fleet had enough firepower to turn planets into dust. Captain Sarah Chun stood in the command center of her new base, hidden in an asteroid field at the edge of Federation space. Around her, dozens of screens showed the positions of Federation warships and the status of rebel worlds. "How many ships do we have?" she asked Dr. Elena Vasquez. Elena checked her datapad. 237 vessels have joined our fleet. Most are cargo ships and patrol boats that defected from the Federation. We also have the 3 battleships that Admiral Veximer brought when he switched sides. Sarah shook her head. "That's not enough. The Federation has 500 warships, including their newest dreadnoughts. We can't win a direct fight." "Maybe we don't need to fight them," Elena said with a thoughtful expression. "Maybe we need to feed them." Sarah raised an eyebrow. "Feed them? Elena, those are Federation warships. Their crews have been trained to resist influence." "Have they been trained to resist chocolate?" Elena asked with a smile. Elena's plan was ambitious and dangerous. Instead of fighting the Federation fleet, they would try to convert it. Human smuggling ships would approach the Federation vessels not as enemies but as delivery services. Each ship would carry cargo holds full of the most irresistible foods Earth had to offer. "It's insane," said Jake Morrison, Elena's former chef turned military advisor. "Federation crews are disciplined soldiers. They won't just accept food from enemy ships. But they're also beings who have eaten nothing but nutrition blocks their entire lives," Elena replied. "When Admiral Veximer's crew tasted coffee and cookies, the entire fleet defected in 6 hours." Sarah studied the tactical displays. "Even if it works on some ships, Admiral Correxival won't be fooled. He's the most loyal Federation officer in the galaxy." "Then we'll have to be creative," Elena said. The operation began at dawn on the second day of the Federation ultimatum. Human ships approached the massive Federation fleet from all directions. Instead of weapons, they carried what Elena called care packages. Each package contained carefully selected foods, designed to create maximum emotional impact. The first target was the Federation destroyer Rigid Discipline. Captain Sarah's ship, the Seasoning, flew directly toward the enemy vessel. "Federation ship Rigid Discipline, this is Captain Chun of the human vessel Seasoning. We surrender unconditionally and request permission to come aboard." The Rigid Discipline's captain, a stern Rigelian named Vexmore, appeared on the communication screen. "Captain Chun, you are wanted throughout Federation space. Prepare to be taken into custody." "Of course, Captain Vexmore. But first I have a gift for you and your crew. A token of respect from one soldier to another." Sarah's ship released a small cargo pod. Inside were fresh-baked cookies, still warm from the oven, along with bottles of milk and packages of hot chocolate mix. "What is this?" Captain Vexmore demanded. "Food, Captain. Real food. I know you've been eating nutrition blocks for years. I thought you and your crew might enjoy something different before you arrest me." Captain Vexmore stared at the pod for a long moment. Behind him, Sarah could see other officers on the bridge leaning forward with curious expressions. "This could be poison," Vexmore said, but his voice lacked conviction. "Captain, if we wanted to poison you, we would have used weapons, not cookies. Try one. If it kills you, you can destroy my ship in revenge." 20 minutes later, Sarah received a communication from the Rigid Discipline. Captain Vexmore's face appeared on the screen, but he looked completely different. His usually stern expression had been replaced by wonder and confusion. "Captain Chun," he said slowly, "my crew has experienced your food items. I must ask you, Why does this eating process cause such intense pleasure? Sarah smiled. Because that's what food is supposed to do, Captain. It's supposed to make you happy. But the Federation teaches that pleasure while eating is inefficient and dangerous. What do you think, Captain? Do you feel dangerous right now? Dexmore was quiet for a moment. Sarah could hear sounds of laughter in the background of his bridge. I feel peaceful, he said finally. My crew is behaving strangely. They are smiling and talking about the taste sensations, but they are not violent or destructive. They seem content. Would you like to feel this way again, Captain? Yes, Dexmore answered without hesitation. Yes, I would. The rigid discipline became the first Federation warship to join the rebels during the siege. But it was not the last. Across the Federation fleet, similar scenes played out. Human ships distributed care packages to dozens of enemy vessels. Ship after ship, crew after crew, experienced real food for the first time and chose to switch sides, but Admiral Correxival was not fooled. From his flagship, he watched his fleet slowly dissolving as ships defected to join the human food smugglers. All remaining loyal vessels, he broadcast to his fleet. You are ordered to destroy any ship that approaches with food packages. Anyone who accepts or consumes alien food items will be court-martialed and executed, but it was too late. Half of his fleet had already tasted human cuisine and would not return to nutrition blocks. The Federation's greatest military force was tearing itself apart, not through battle, but through the simple act of sharing a meal. Admiral Correxival made a desperate decision. He would personally lead a strike force to destroy the human base in the asteroid field. If he could capture or kill the rebellion's leaders, perhaps he could still save the Federation from this culinary catastrophe. Prepare my personal assault fleet, he ordered. We end this today. But as his ships moved toward the asteroid field, Admiral Correxival did not know that Captain Sarah Chun was already preparing for his arrival, and she had a very special meal planned for the Federation's most loyal officer. Admiral Correxival's assault fleet emerged from hyperspace like avenging angels. 20 of the Federation's most powerful warships surrounded the asteroid field where the human rebels had built their secret base. The Admiral stood on his bridge, his metal exoskeleton gleaming under the harsh lights. Launch all fighters, he commanded. I want that base destroyed and every human leader captured alive. But as his ships moved into attack formation, something unexpected happened. A single small ship emerged from the asteroid field and flew directly toward his flagship. It was Captain Sarah Chun's vessel, the Seasoning, and it was broadcasting on all frequencies. Admiral Correxival, this is Captain Sarah Chun. I request permission to come aboard your ship. The Admiral's tactical officer, a nervous Krillian named Vextel, looked up from his console. Sir, she's not armed. It appears to be a surrender? Admiral Correxival studied the approaching ship with suspicion. This could be a trap. Scan 4. Weapons, explosives, anything dangerous. The scans came back clean. The small human ship carried no weapons, no bombs, nothing that could threaten a Federation battleship. Admiral, Sarah's voice came through the communication system again. I know you're scanning my ship. You won't find any weapons because I didn't bring any. I brought something else. What did you bring, human? Dinner, Sarah said simply. I brought dinner for you and your crew. Admiral Correxival was silent for a long moment. Around him, his bridge officers exchanged confused glances. In his 50 years of military service, no enemy had ever offered to cook him a meal. You wish to surrender by feeding me? He asked. I wish to show you something, Admiral. Something your own government has kept hidden from you your entire life. Against the advice of his officers, Admiral Correxival allowed Sarah's ship to dock with his flagship. Security teams escorted Sarah to the main conference room, where she found herself face-to-face with the Federation's most feared military commander. Admiral Correxival was a member of the mechanoid species, beings who had replaced most of their biological parts with metal and circuits. His face was partially synthetic, but his eyes were still organic, still capable of emotion. You have 5 minutes to explain yourself before I have you executed, he said. Sarah had brought with her a Simple meal. Nothing fancy, nothing that would seem threatening. Just a plate of grilled cheese sandwiches, a bowl of tomato soup, and some chocolate chip cookies for dessert. Admiral, when did you last eat something that made you smile? She asked, setting the food on the table between them. I do not eat for pleasure, Correxival replied. I consume nutrition blocks for sustenance. Pleasure is inefficient, says who? The question seemed to catch the Admiral off guard. The Federation has always taught this principle. For 3,000 years, we have maintained order through discipline and uniformity. Sarah picked up one of the sandwiches and took a bite. The smell of melted cheese and toasted bread filled the room. Admiral Correxival watched her with fascination. Admiral, has anyone ever asked you what you wanted to eat? Not what you needed to eat, but what you wanted. That question makes no sense, Correxival said, but his organic eyes remained fixed on the food. It makes perfect sense. Watch. Sarah dipped the sandwich into the tomato soup and took another bite. The Admiral's sensors detected the complex chemical reactions happening in Sarah's brain, the release of endorphins and dopamine that came with enjoying good food. The food is causing biochemical changes in your system, Correxival observed. Yes, it is. It's making me happy. Would you like to feel happy, Admiral? Correxival stared at the food for a long time. His mechanical parts hummed quietly while his organic brain processed this new concept. I have not felt happiness in 47 years, he said quietly. Not since I completed my mechanical conversion. You can feel it again, Sarah said gently, right now. Just take one bite. The Admiral reached out with a metal hand and picked up half of a sandwich. He studied it as if it were a complex piece of technology. If I eat this, will it change me? He asked. Yes, Sarah answered honestly. It will change you. The question is, do you want to be changed? Admiral Correxival brought the sandwich to his mouth and took a small bite. The taste sensors in his remaining organic parts immediately began sending signals to his brain. For the first time in decades, he experienced flavor. The Admiral's eyes widened. His mechanical body began to tremble slightly as his brain processed sensations it had forgotten were possible. What is this feeling? He whispered. Contentment, Sarah said. Pleasure, joy, the things your people have been denied for 3,000 years. Correxival took another bite, larger this time. Then another. Within minutes, he had eaten the entire sandwich and was reaching for the soup. My crew, he said suddenly. They need to experience this. Are you sure, Admiral? Once they taste real food, they won't want to go back to nutrition blocks. Correxival looked at Sarah with his organic eyes, which were now filled with tears. Captain Chun, I have spent my entire life enforcing Federation law. I have destroyed planets and executed rebels in the name of order and unity. But I realize, now that we have been enforcing the wrong law, Sarah smiled. What law should you have been enforcing? The law that says every being has the right to feel joy. Within an hour, the crew of Admiral Correxival's flagship was experiencing their first real meal. Federation soldiers, officers, and technicians sat together in the ship's dining halls, sharing grilled cheese sandwiches and tomato soup. The rigid military hierarchy dissolved as beings who had never shown emotion began laughing and crying. With happiness, the scene was repeated across the Admiral's entire assault fleet. Ship after ship, crew after crew, tasted real food and chose to join the rebellion rather than return to their flavorless existence. Admiral Correxival sent a message to the remaining Federation forces throughout the galaxy. This is Admiral Correxival. To all Federation vessels. I have discovered that our government has been lying to us for 3,000 years. They have kept us from experiencing one of the most basic joys of existence. I am ordering all ships under my command to stand down and join the human food distribution network. The message was broadcast across Federation space. On hundreds of worlds, beings heard their most respected military leader confess that everything they had been taught was wrong. Chancellor Vexeloth, watching from the Federation capital, saw his empire crumble in a single day. Not through conquest or war, but through the simple act of sharing a meal. 3 months later, the Galactic Federation formally surrendered. But it was not a surrender to human military might. It was a surrender to the idea that life should be more than just survival. The Federation government was dissolved and replaced with the Galactic Culinary Alliance, a loose confederation of worlds united by trade, exploration, and the shared experience of enjoying good food together. Docked in Sarah Chun's ship, the Seasoning was renamed the first vessel of the Galactic Food Exchange. Her mission was no longer smuggling but teaching. She traveled from world to world, showing beings how to grow, prepare, and enjoy real food. Dr. Elena Vasquez established the Galactic Institute of Culinary Sciences, where researchers from 100 different species worked together to create new foods that could be enjoyed by all forms of life. Admiral Correxival, now calling himself simply Admiral Cook, led the former Federation military in a new mission, protecting food trade routes and ensuring that no being would ever again be denied the right to taste. The galaxy had learned an important lesson. The humans had not conquered them with superior technology or military force. They had conquered them with something much more powerful, the simple truth that sharing a meal with others was one of the greatest joys in the universe. On Earth, historians would later call it the Flavor War. But those who lived through it knew a better name for what had happened. They called it the Great Awakening, the moment when an entire galaxy discovered that existence could be about more than just surviving. It could be about living, and it all started with a simple grilled cheese sandwich shared between former enemies who became friends over dinner.